Welcome to our lecture online. Here's another very interesting question from one of our viewers, and this viewer is from Germany. And it's a very interesting problem because it involves a lot of different things all at once. It involves torque, momentum, impulse, and moment of inertia all in one. And let's explain the problem. So here we have a shaft. A rope is wrapped around the shaft, and on the end of the rope we have a bucket or some object with a mass of 5.2 kilograms. The radius of the shaft is 11 centimeters, and at the end of the shaft there's a wheel, so the wheel could potentially be used to turn the shaft, and the radius of the wheel is 35 centimeters. We're also told that the moment of inertia of the entire system is 0.75 kilograms per cubic meters, and we're told that the bucket is allowed to be lowered all the way down so that the height of the fall of the bucket is 10 meters. There's 5 questions. First question, what is the force needed to keep the bucket from moving? So that's going to be a torque problem. The second one is, what is the velocity at the bottom? So there's different ways in which we can solve that. It looks like conservation of energy might work here. The next one is the time to reach the bottom. So for that, well, we'll think about that, how we're going to figure that out. Then we need to know the acceleration on the way down. And finally, the impulse. Wow. It seems kind of odd because typically impulse is not used on a problem like this. So they really are trying to make us think of how to go about solving this problem. Now there's a lot of things being asked. There's only so much board space, so we'll go ahead and do it in 2 parts. The first part, we'll take the first 2 questions, A and B. And then for the second part, we'll solve C, D, and E. All right, so first, the force needed to keep it from moving. So that means we're dealing with a torque problem. And if we take a look at that problem, so we have the wheel like this. And then inside we have the shaft. And they're all connected, right? So they're connected. So let's go ahead and draw the connection like this. All right, on one end, we have the bucket like this with a mass equal to 5.2 kilograms. And then on the other hand, we have to stop it from moving. So if all we have the bucket is, the bucket would simply go down and the whole wheel would turn this way. So that means we're going to need to apply a force in the opposite direction. So we're going to need a force. And the question is, how much of force do we need? So let's call this the point of rotation. Let's call this here distance 1. And let's call this here distance 2. And of course, distance 1 and distance 2 are from the line of action of the force to the point of rotation, from the line of action of the force to the point of rotation. And so here we have the tension on one side and the force on the other side. Now, of course, assuming the bucket is not moving, which means that the tension will be equal to the weight of the bucket, and the weight of the bucket will be m times g. So now we can set up the equation that the sum of the torques about the point of rotation must equal 0. And now let's add up all the torques. So the first torque is caused by the weight of the bucket. It will give the whole thing a counterclockwise direction, which is a positive direction. So it would be a plus mg times distance 1. Let's call this distance 1. So times distance 1 minus, because the force will give it a clockwise direction, of force times distance 2. So that's the equation we're going to use to find the force. So take this equation right here, move the force and distance to one side. So force times distance 2 equals mg times distance 1, or force is equal to mg times distance 1 divided by distance 2. Plugging in some numbers, that would be equal to 5.2 kilograms. G is 9.8 meters per second squared. D1 is the radius of the shaft, which is 0.11. Let's go like this. And finally, we divide that by distance 2, which is the radius of the wheel, which is 0.35. And that will give us the force in newtons. Let's find out how much that is. So we get 5.2 times 9.8 times 0.11 divided by 0.35, and we get 16.016 newtons. So 16 newtons. It's 16.016 newtons. The reason why I put this down is that in case we need to use that amount to calculate the next value, that we get something that we don't get a rounding error. But two significant figures, since most information we got was two significant figures, we should have the answer in two significant figures. 60 newtons of force will keep the bucket from going down. Okay, next we need the velocity at the bottom, and I think for that we can use conservation of energy. So this is for part A. Now we're going to do part B. Part B, we're going to say energy initial equals energy final. We're going to assume that the bucket starts at the very top and goes down a distance of 10 meters. So that means we have any work put into the system plus any initial potential energy plus any initial kinetic energy will equal potential energy final plus kinetic energy final plus any energy lost due to friction or anything like that. But in this particular case, no mention of friction, so that would be 0, and no work put into the system while the bucket is coming down. So no work and no energy lost. At the very top, we do have potential energy, but we don't have kinetic energy because we're not moving yet. And at the bottom, we have no potential energy, but we have kinetic energy. So essentially, this equation becomes that the potential energy initial is equal to kinetic energy final. Now, let's write in what these things are. Potential energy initial is when the bucket is at the very top, and so that would be mgh equals kinetic energy at the bottom. Now, there's two kinds of kinetic energy. There is the translational kinetic energy with the bucket going down, and then there's the rotational kinetic energy. So here we have 1/2 mv final squared plus 1/2 I omega final squared. So this is for the translational kinetic energy, and that's for the rotational kinetic energy. Now we're given I, but we're not given final velocity. And besides, we're trying to find final velocity, so we have to convert omega to v. And we can say that v final is equal to r times omega final, which means that omega final is equal to v final over r. So we're going to replace omega final by v final over r. So we get mgh is equal to 1/2 mv final squared plus 1/2 I. And instead of omega, we write v final squared divided by r squared. We may want to do one more thing. Get rid of the 1/2 by multiplying everything by 2. So we get 2 mgh equals mv final squared plus I over r squared v final squared. Since we're looking for v final, we can factor out a v final. So we get 2 mgh equals v final squared times m plus I over r squared. And so finally, we can solve all this by dividing both sides by this and taking the square root. So v final is equal to the square root of 2 mgh divided by m plus I over r squared. Now, which r are we talking about? Well, it is the r right here where the rope is over the shaft, because that's the one that's related to the velocity, so this has to be r1 squared. All right, let's plug in numbers and see what we get. This is equal to the square root of 2 times the mass, which is 5.2, times g, which is 9.8, times the height, which is 10, divided by, and the bottom one, not 1, but the mass, which is 5.2, plus the moment of inertia, which is given us 0.75, and the radius, which is 0.11, and we have to square that. All right, let's grab a calculator and figure this out. Starting with the denominator, we have 0.11 squared. Take that to the numerator, in the denominator, times 0.75 plus 5.2. Bring that to the numerator. Now we multiply it times 2 times 5.2 times 9.8 times 10. And so we end up with, write that down, so you should get equal to the square root of 15.17, in case you want to follow along and try this. And then finally, when we take the square root, we get 3.895. So V final equals 3.895 meters per second when the bucket gets to the bottom after dropping 10 meters. All right, that is a good start. That gives us the answers to A and B. We'll now erase the board and start attacking C, D, and E in part 2 of the problem. Okay, all right. So far, so good, I suppose.